Broadcasting live from the Business RadioX studio in Cumming, Georgia, it's time for Forsyth Business Radio.
And hello again, everybody, and welcome back to Forsyth Business Radio. I am your host, Amanda Pearch, joined in studio by my co-host, Mr. Brad Beisbier. How are you today?
Well, thank you. Very nice.
We were just having a funny conversation about the slaughter of your last name over the years.
There's a lot of vowels in it, and it really gets people anxious when they're forced to say it.
It does. For those of you that don't know Brad is the area executive for First Citizens Bank, and he is going to be riding the catbird seat here with me for the next few episodes. So we're going to get to know Brad throughout our time together, and hopefully Brad won't take my job by the time it's all said and done.
I don't know. I think you do a very fine job, and I think you're safe.
Oh, thank you so much. Well, we've got two wonderful guests in studio today. First, I'd like to thank Mr. Mike Salmon from Gwinnett Business RadioX, who is allowing us to actually record here for convenience of our guests. And our guests today are Colleen Japuntich. I practiced that.
Yeah, that's not like Smith or Brown or anything.
No, it's not an easy one either, so I can relate to having people slaughter your name.
She is the president of NEMA Inc, located in Duluth, Georgia. And then also alongside is Cole Porter, who is the president of Porter Steel Incorporated as well. Good morning.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Welcome back.
Thanks for having us.
Thank you.
Let's just let our listeners understand a little bit about their corporations and maybe about what they do within the community.
No, I like it. I think that's a plan.
Who would you like to start with, Brad
Well,
or Colleen?
What do you say, Colleen?
Ladies first.
Sure.
He's a gentleman.
Awesome. Well, thank you again for having me. I really appreciate it. So I work for NEMA Incorporated. We are a logistics company here in Duluth, as Amanda mentioned. We've been in business for about 34 years doing long-haul trucking, warehousing. We do international services, air freight, mainly for the paper machine clothing industry, which is what we've had in our wheelhouse for several years. But we are looking to branch out, get some more business in the warehousing side, and expanding our foreign trade zone, which we've talked a little bit about on our last show.
Which was celebrating Powerhouse Women, by the way. And how about you, Cole? Tell us about Porter Steel.
Yeah, so Porter Steel was founded in 1983 by my dad, Low Porter, and we've been doing structural steel, miscellaneous metals in the construction industry for all that time. So right now we work mostly for GCs and then larger steel fabricators where we will do the miscellaneous metals portion of a project. So.
Give an example of miscellaneous metals.
Yeah, so structural steel is, the columns, beams, joist, deck, the things that if you removed one of those members, something might fall down or be dangerous. Whereas miscellaneous metals helps people, is how I like to say it. So stairs, rails, they definitely need to be there for safety, but they're not a structural component of a building. So we do a lot of those. It's a very important part, and also gets seen a lot. So we like to show off our work.
Yeah,
a lot of the structural stuff.
Right.
You're right. Yeah, it gets covered up.
The drywall doesn't cover that stuff up.
Exactly.
There's a lot of projects now, right, that have steel shown, and it's kind of showcased a little bit more than maybe in the past.
Yeah, and there's something called architecturally exposed structural steel, and that's when columns and beams are a part of the architecture of the space. And so that's cool. We've been a part of a lot of cool projects like that too. But certainly the miscellaneous, you'll see those stairs, you'll see the rails, you'll see the facade work, the signage that we might put up.
I wonder if, Colleen, now give me maybe the technical term for it. When I was touring your facility, the mounts that are on your wall made of steel that are holding the large barrels of your product, would you think that would be a miscellaneous metal?
I would think so. Or racks that we use for, holding pallets and the fabrics. So.
Okay. They kind of look like railroad ties or like beams.
Okay.
Do you do railroad ties?
Not railroad. Railroad special. So it's like federally regulated and stuff like that.
Are they made of steel?
Yeah, they're made of steel. I think it's just a different composition. I'm not certain, but you can't, when someone brings in a railroad tie and says, or a railroad rail and says, cut this for me, you can't do that. You got to tell them, you have to have a letter.
You can't dabble in that,
right?
You either do that or you don't.
It's like, you got to give me a letter from the railroad company that says I can do that,
I can imagine they wouldn't want any, jerry rigging on the tracks.
Yeah.
Maybe probably regulated by the DOT.
Yeah, I'm sure it's somebody.
Well, before the show, we were kind of talking about the history of NEMA. But first, because we were talking about your name, Colleen, what is the actual origin of Japuntich?
Yeah, so it's actually my husband's name, but it's Croatian.
So to NEMA, what I, full disclosure, I had to look up clothing machine and that kind of stumped me at first. I mean, I didn't realize what it was. Maybe you can share a little bit more about that.
Yeah, sure. So the product that we have called Paper Machine Clothing, it actually goes on the paper machine. So they call it clothing of the paper machine. And it helps make paper. They cannot make paper. You're talking tissue, toilet paper, Kleenex, paper towels, things like drywall, cardboard boxes for all these Amazon products that we're ordering to our house. So again, without this product, they can't make that.
We have a lot of boxes that come to our house.
Yes,
we're supporting the cardboard box.
We are. So we're happy to help support that business, and we're grateful that people are supporting that. So during the pandemic, when everybody was having issues getting paper towels and toilet paper, we were really busy.
Mm-hmm. I bet. Holy smokes.
Yeah.
And did you know that was done right here in Duluth? Like unbeknownst to us, right here in Duluth.
That's neat.
Now, Colleen has clients that are all over the world. And when I was in her office, I keep giving all these secrets because I get to tour the facility.
I want to tour the facility.
Yes.
I don't know.
Please come by.
Yes. Okay. First of all, there's one qualifying question. Brad, do you like cats?
Yes.
Then you're in.
You're good.
And I know it sounds redundant, Colleen,
but
we have a different
family
audience.
fur friends.
Tell
in
them
the
about
family.
them.
Yes, so we have 2 office cats, Frankie and Rosie. We've had them for about 9 years, and throughout the history of NEMA, we've always had office cats.
Outstanding.
Nice.
Yeah.
They really rule the roost.
They do.
Like they have like a whole like play area, like the jungle gym. I don't know the term for it. And also their bedding is like on the desks. So her colleagues will be working and then and just lay down. It's really cool.
I did see on the website, Colleen, like mission, vision, values, and kind of the family approach to things. Maybe you could tell a little bit more about that.
Yeah, so again, it was started as a family business. Neil, the owner, and his wife, which is where the NEMA comes from. His name is Neil. Her name is Marcia, so that's where we got the NEMA. And then lots of other family members have come and gone over the years, and it's just an environment that we get along really well. We enjoy working together. We work really hard, but we love to play hard too. And the cats kind of help us keep a little bit more centered and grounded and reduce the stress. And they can be entertaining too when you get a nice laser pointer out and start playing. Sure.
Working hard and then playing. I know that's part of Porter Steel as well.
Oh, yeah, definitely. We're definitely focused on the mission, vision, values. We say we're powered by principle. Yeah. So we just really like to make our decisions out of principle. Anything we do, we want to stand by that decision if it's a principled one, So I think that that's a good rule for us and just anything in life. I mean, if you can just know what your principles are and where you stand. So we try to push that to our employees and also for us to be held accountable by not just holding our employees accountable, but them holding us accountable to do what we say we're going to do.
Right.
So, yeah.
I like how on your website, Cole, you talk about who you serve and first you list your employees. It's employees like family, community, clients.
Yeah.
So you would think like most people, it would be a paradigm shift. They'd be like clients, But you first and foremost serve, inside from inside out, if that makes sense.
Yeah. I think the reason why we're in business is, one of the main reasons is that we obviously want to provide a great, service to the families that make it up. So it's my family, but it's also the 75 other families that are represented. If we can't make money and those 75 families aren't better off, then we have to question why we're doing things, right? So that's really where we start. And, we call everyone a partner. So it's whether it's an employee, a vendor, or a customer, we need to be partners. And if it's just transactional, then we probably need to move on for both of our sake. But we want it to be that relationship, that relational approach to business.
And you apply that in your personal life as well. I know you lead your family with fortitude and grace. On the personal side, Cole is a dad of
3. Yeah.
Yes. Oh my goodness. And what's the age range again?
Yeah. So Amos is 7, Hannah is about to turn 6, and Abram's about to turn 3. Wow. So they keep us busy.
You did that well. They would say about to. I'm almost 6.
Yeah, but
I'm almost.
Especially when they're that young, it's like there's a big difference between just turned 5 and almost 6. So it's gotta.
We like to round up.
Yeah, exactly.
And Colleen, remind me, your daughter's 12.
She's 11. She'll be 12 in February.
I almost got it.
Yep.
And you guys just took a recent trip to Disneyland, didn't you?
Well, it was a business trip to Disneyland. We were actually down there for a conference that was actually at one of the resorts at Disney. So, of course, one of my coworkers and I said, well, we're going to go a few days early and do the parks. Well, then when my daughter found out I was going to Disney without her, that was not going to fly. So I had to make an agreement that I would take her for fall break. So in 2 weeks, we're going to Disney again.
Is it going to be just the girls, or are you going to let your husband go?
He's not a Disney fan. Can't stand Disney. I don't know why. I was raised on Disney. Huge fanatic. So my daughter and I are going to have a blast, just a
girls trip. That's it. I remember I cherished times that I had just to spend with individual parents as well as collectively.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. We do a little bit of that in our house, and the Disney thing. I'm not the hugest fan of Disney. I mean, there's something about heat and humidity and lines, and then putting on a great face, and the kids don't care, and my Tara, my wife, doesn't care. So sometimes we've split up in the past. Now it's a little more fun to go to like Universal for me, and so I've kind of like jumped into the Disney thing now that we've got teenagers, and we all have a good time together. But I'm with your husband on that.
Yeah.
Well, let's pivot here really quickly because we have something that we haven't touched on, and I think is definitely noteworthy. I'm going to put you in the hot seat, Cole, because you are a local celebrity, I think at least. You might have seen him recently. I've been seeing through the social media feeds. You made a Good Day Atlanta appearance not too long ago, but there's a specific reason that you've kind of gotten all this media attention. So share with our listeners a little bit about the Ark of Lilburn.
Okay, I will share with you. I will say that it's funny that you say I'm a local celebrity because I would have to, it's just funny to hear.
You're
not
a
local celebrity.
You're a humble man, so
awkward.
you would never identify yourself as that.
Yeah, I would never self-identify as a local celebrity. But so it's a film that is it's a documentary style film that is called The Ark of Lilburn, and it is about my family, our business, and the subject matter is really moving the steel yacht that my dad built from Lilburn to the Tennessee River in Tennessee near Knoxville. And so that's kind of like the underlying reason why we're filming, but the story of the documentary really goes deeper into my family, my relationship with my dad. That's probably a big portion of it, and just kind of how we navigate those waters. And then there's lots of boat analogies, but it's very in the beginning, it was going to be a very simple, like, okay, we're going to move the boat, and it's going to be simple, and we might have to add some scenes to it. But it just, the way it happened, it was so much, everything that could go wrong went wrong. So it was just very dramatic process. It was very stressful. So we didn't have to do anything extra. It was just very real. And I think it's a really good product. And so we just had a distribution deal, and it will be coming for on demand in December and then streaming in the first quarter of next year.
And you had a sneak preview, didn't you? At the,
yes.
I always say around Aurora Theater?
No, it was I can't even remember.
Not the one in, not Anthony and.
No.
Okay.
It was in Atlanta.
Oh, okay.
We had a little premiere. So there's an episodic version, and then there's a film version, and the one that's gone under contract is the film version. But we showed the first 3 episodes in that version in the premiere.
Neat.
So yeah, it was good.
Cole, what was like the initial, how did the idea of a movie, how did that, or what was the motivation to actually like run with it?
Right, yeah, so there was a producer and a director that was filming, they were filming a pilot for just a proof of concept film, or a series that they had designed, and they came by Porter Steel and they said, hey, there was like this apocalyptic kind of murders and assassinations and like fight scenes and things like that. So they're like, hey, we need an old warehouse to film this in. And they're like, and yours looks kind of old. So we were like, they asked if they could film one day, and we agreed to it. And while they were filming one Friday night, they wandered back into our boat shop, and I showed them, and they said, what is this? And of course, this is a 50-foot long steel yacht, and then when it's not in water, it's like 20 feet tall. I mean, it's huge, especially when you don't know what you're about to walk into. And so when they saw it, they're like, what is this, and what are you doing with it here, And so that's when I was telling them that we're about to move this thing to the river, and it's going to be this crazy thing, but we're doing it. And that's when they're like, you have to film this, And so that's when they start talking to my dad about, we've got to make this into a documentary. And we did.
Nice.
Wasn't there a little funny part that I remember you telling me once upon a time, like it was a project that took your dad a while, like it was an ongoing build. And when he started, he had no idea how big it was going to be and didn't think about how he would get it into the water?
Well, he had a set of plans, so he knew how big it was going to end up. But the problem was he started in 2003-ish, and then when the recession happened in 2011, 2012, he completely stopped. And so it was about 95% complete at that time. Well, when he's in 2003, when he's getting quotes to move it from the water or from here to the water, it was a lot less than it is now. And so, you're just not planning to spend the extra money that we spent to get it there. So that was the big thing.
Are you having to pay to plop it in the Tennessee River? Like, obviously,
It's in a dry dock
stay there.
space, so it's
Okay.
kind of like a rented monthly place that it sits until we're ready to tow it down the river.
All right, and obviously you're going to do the whole christening with a champagne bottle and sail off into the wind.
Something like that.
Very cool.
To be determined.
Well, they should document that
Yeah.
as well.
No doubt.
Speaking logistically, Colleen has a wonderful and just totally analytical mind for logistics. I know that as we speak now, you know where those little trucks on that screen are driving around, and you know where all your drivers are and routes, etc.
Yep.
From a logistical standpoint, talk about maybe some of the challenges that someone like Cole's family in moving that ARC would experience, like through the DOT or even getting it down the road, just based on your knowledge within logistics.
Sure. Well, the biggest thing is obviously the DOT regulations and the number of hours the driver can drive every day. You know, they're limited to 11 hours per day that they can drive. But with that, they also have a clock that runs concurrently with it of 14 hours of day on duty. So what people fail to realize is that if they're sitting somewhere at a shipper or a delivery waiting to either pick up or deliver and they get held up, you know, yeah, they're still have 11 hours per se to drive, but if they've wasted 8 hours of their on duty, they don't have that many. They only have now, you know, 4 hours to drive or 3 hours to drive. So that's a big constraint. You know, shippers and receivers, a lot of them, because of COVID, you know, shut their hours down to a shorter time period. So like a lot of the places we go to, they close at 2:00. So when your driver's driving all day and he misses that window, let's say he gets there at 2:30 and he has to now wait till the next day, that limits how he can get to his next stop. So now we like to say it's a cascading effect. So now, you know, that delivery is delayed and he has to wait till the next day, which means all the deliveries after that have to wait to the next day. And the way we run it, we do a route service. So we have all of our deliveries on the front end of the trip, and the back end we pick up at the manufacturer, bring it back to NEMA. We do the sort, repurpose it, put it on a trailer, and deliver it. So it's kind of a round robin, constantly moving. Well, if you have delays on your deliveries, now you're delayed at your pickup. If you have a problem with the pickup, they don't get back to NEMA to make that sort. Now you're delaying that delivery an additional week. So again, everything
That just
cascades.
snowballs.
It does. It does. So you've got those things. You know, you've got law enforcement that's looking for, you know, hey, are they speeding even just a little bit over? They're looking for money to help fund, you know, their local communities. So you've got those kinds of
I
issues.
see the scales on the side of highways too.
Yes,
Is that
it can be. Thankfully, we have a really good safety record. There's this program called CSA, which kind of keeps track of how well you're doing, and that's when you can determine whether or not the DOT has to come in and do an audit because maybe you're not being safe, you're not staying within your hour constraints and things like that. So a lot of times, if you have a good score, we have a system in the truck that will give us a green light as our drivers are driving past. You see those little things that hang over the highway,
Right.
and it'll give them a green light to say, hey,
So you
you
get a
have a good
pass.
score, you get a pass, which is great.
That's a
because
differentiator
it is.
for you.
It's a big
back
deal.
to the timing, not
is.
having to sit in line and wait to get on that
Absolutely.
scale.
So, I mean, even if they have to slow down and just go through, you know, slowly,
Sure.
that can be a 5 or 10 minute. But if all of a sudden the DOT says, hey, I want to bring you over, you're looking at least an hour delay because they're going to look
Right.
at your logs, they're going to look at your load, they're going to look at your tractor, trying to find something that they can, you know, put you on the side of the road. And then if they do find something that is egregious enough, now they're putting you out of service and you have to wait until either you get it fixed, or if you're past your hours, you have to wait until you are able to drive again. So everything we do has potential delays and potential pitfalls.
Right, and everybody's got to realize it's a team sport, right? Like
It
we
is.
all got to work together to make this happen.
Absolutely.
Most of our trucking clients, Colleen, I'm trying to think, are like it's domestic, right? I mean, you take a truck, maybe they're coast to coast, maybe they're southeast regional. But I saw a couple of like international and foreign trade kind of topics mentioned on your website. Maybe talk a little bit about that.
Yeah, so the product that we haul is made in the U.S. It's made all across the world, and some of them are made in maybe China or in Europe, come here and go to paper mills here, and then vice versa. Some of them are made here domestically, but they're going overseas for a paper mill over there. So there's a lot of transitioning. But we have several plants that we go up to Canada. So we have drivers. We have, I think, 4 or 5 trucks that go every week into Canada.
A lot of paper
make
mills
deliveries.
up there.
Yep. Bring stuff up there, bring stuff back from the manufacturers there. We don't go into Mexico just because that's a whole nother world.
Understood.
Yeah, it's a little bit more
Risky?
Not so. Yes, not so safe. So we have trucks that we take our trailer down to Laredo and leave it with the freight forwarder, and then they take it into Mexico, down to a plant there, take off the product that's going to distribute throughout Mexico, pick up product there that's coming back either to the U.S., Canada, or going onto a container for us to send overseas.
Sure.
So, so we've got a lot of trucks. With only having 34 drivers, we cover most of the U.S., Canada, and to Laredo.
That's impressive.
Yeah, no doubt. It's not, right, I mean, like the first thing that comes to mind, it's not easy to run a business. If it was, everybody would. So you guys don't need to be none of that. And then the headwinds right now are pretty strong, and then specifically, like one of them is employment and finding it. And then specifically with employment, it seems like truck drivers are challenging to find right now. So,
very much
how are you dealing with that?
Well, we're very fortunate. Again, kind of what Cole was talking about of how we treat our people. It really matters. So the drivers, we take really good care of them. So they want to stay with us a long time. We have drivers. We have one that's been with us 27 years. Nice. Our average is probably between 10 to 15 years of seniority. Yeah. And again, it's the route. They know what day they leave every week. They know what day they get home. So you can actually have a life and plan. And if you have kids, you can be there for their games and their sports and, those kind of things. So that's a big deal. And obviously, making sure our pay is competitive. We can't necessarily compete with a Walmart paying 6 figures, but our drivers are as taken care of as we can within the constraints of our business.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. It seems that both of your organizations share a family, culture, and really kind of nurture that. And therefore, you guys have had a lot of retention. Cole, you specifically mentioned 75 families. Yep. So does that mean that you have 75 employees?
Yeah, we have 75 employees right now. And we really try to, our philosophy is really that we want to lead in more than just business. So we want to lead in our community. We want to lead in public policy. We want to lead in just how business should run and how you should treat people. So we don't want to just say, oh, well, we're just a business, so we can only talk about business things, right? We know that we impact those 75 employees, and then it's very difficult to separate your work life from your individual personal life. So my philosophy is that I want to, rather than you having to have a break from your work life, I just want to positively impact your personal life, right? So I want your wife and your kids or your husband or whoever to say, oh, I'm glad you work at Porter Steel because I can see that it's helping you and it's not being a drain on our family, it's being positive for our family. And we have a long way to go in a lot of places. I mean, it's not something you just snap your fingers and that happens. But I think that if we have that philosophy as our goal, then we can really make a difference, and not just those lives, but also our community and those around us.
Talk a little bit about the structure of your team. You've recently became president of Porter Steel. Yep. So previous to that, you were the vice president. Right. So talk about the structure now. Is there currently someone in the VP seat?
Well, yeah. So when I came back professionally 5 years ago, I started as a project manager and then became general manager and then vice president, now president. And but in high school I worked in the shop, and I was a project manager after college for a little while. But my philosophy is definitely that I need to have people that know more than me around me. So there are areas of the business where I know enough to be dangerous or know enough to have a conversation about, but they're certainly experts, and those people need to be the ones accountable for the everything in that area, right? And so I want to have a good leadership team, and I think we've really formed that with some really great directors. And then I have 2 vice presidents, so that are basically running different divisions of the company. Mm-hmm. But we certainly are a team approach. We definitely, we're really pushing accountability right now and trying to build that up and make sure that, hey, if we can operate and do what we say we're going to do and be accountable for the things we say we will be, then success should be a given, right? We need to work hard, we need to be accountable, and those are the things we're pushing right now.
I think we as a society, Cole, are doing a better job of saying that skilled trades is a great way for a young person to go as a career. Are you seeing that in terms of being able to recruit new and younger associates?
I think it's we're making some headway. I think that it's got a long way to go. I think there's still a belief in the average family. I would say that if you talk to the teenagers in that family or even the parents that college is the way to go, and I think for certain people absolutely that's correct, but I think for others I think that definitely the trades are the right decision and incredibly fruitful and good for you to do, but I think that the politicians are starting to talk about it now because they're realizing how much student debt is and all these things that we've caused problems by just saying go to college, get a liberal arts degree, and I have a liberal arts degree, so I'm not bashing that, but I don't use my liberal arts degree, right? I'm glad I went to college, but I don't have had a Spanish degree, so I'm not teaching Spanish, right? So
just looks nice on the wall,
right? Yeah, I don't even have mine on the wall. Golly,
It's good for the beach vacations
right.
too.
What did you pay for, Cole?
Right.
Be fluent with the Uber driver at
Right.
Cozumel.
I was able to talk to my folks in the DR, but the point is that the politicians are starting to talk about it, but I think that we as a society really have to remove the stigma of like you have to go to college. So yeah.
The library of completed projects you guys have on your website is pretty cool. Maybe you could share a little bit about one that stands out or a couple.
Oh gosh, well we my dad always makes the statement that we've probably worked on every block in Atlanta, just because when you do 150 or 175 projects a year over 40 years, you have a wide footprint. But most of our work has been Atlanta. It has been in Atlanta historically, or the metro area, North Georgia. We are certainly stepping out into the southeast now. So over the coming years, I expect there will be a lot of growth into the southeast. But some notable projects, historically we worked on First Baptist Church of Atlanta for Dr. Stanley. We have worked at the Smith Gall, the Atlanta Botanical Gardens. Yeah. We've worked on Illuminarium in Atlanta. There's a lot of different ones that are high profile. But right now we're working on the Assembly Studios, which is over in Doraville, the new studio that they're building. It's going to be incredible. We're doing all the miscellaneous metals for, well, not all, but most of those. And so some really pretty rails, some really pretty architectural pieces. And what's really neat is that they're doing so much of a social media push. And so literally all of our stuff is like in renderings that they're putting out on social media. And so I can't wait for when we're finished for them to really show all that off, because it's going to be really cool. Yeah.
Just to your point, we've got a random client that was on the east side of the connector in Midtown, right, in a tower, leasing space. They're a professional firm, and they decided to go over to the west side on the backside of Georgia Tech and buy an old industrial building, turn it into professional, firm office space, and it's really cool. And there's a lot of steel showcased in there as well. So
I like the exposed steel. For those of you who are just joining us, our guests today are Colleen with NEMA Incorporated. She is the president, and also Cole, who is the president of Porter Steel Incorporated. And I am joined by my co-host today, Mr. Brad. This special show is brought to you by First Citizens Bank. So thank you, Brad, for your support with this series.
It's my pleasure.
While we're talking about sponsorships, Cole and I, we serve on the board of the Young Professionals in Gwinnett together. Well, I've been kicked off to the Emeritus board because I aged out. But Cole still has the great pleasure of sitting on the actual board. Maybe you're getting kicked off next year.
I'm actually already on the Emeritus board too now.
Oh, gosh.
Yeah.
You're a senior advisor as well.
When you turn 36, that's what happens. Literally, they know your birthday.
I can hardly remember 36.
So we sit together on the Emeritus board, shall I say, and you also participate on...
yes, I'm on the board of the Chamber.
Gwinnett Chamber of Commerce, yeah. Porter Steel is an enthusiastic supporter of the Young Professionals. So he and his company have sponsored a lot of events. So thank you all for the support and everything you do within the community. I know that you're big into service as well, Colleen. So share with us maybe some of your passions. Share with us some of the things that you do as a team, other than go flounce about Disneyland with your team. What you guys do to kind of make it is. It's a word. Flounce.
Is that a verb? Do you flounce?
You can flounce. A dress can be flouncy. A comment could be flouncy.
We'll have to show him what flouncing looks like down the hall when we're finished.
Let's do it.
Champagne is flouncy.
Indeed.
Okay.
All right.
Some of the things you guys do together.
Yeah. So unfortunately, we haven't had a lot of time because we're so busy keeping our trucks on the road to really do a lot of team activities as far as in the community. But we are big on trying to find ways to give back, whether it's through money, through sponsorships, and things like that. One that we're really big about, obviously, is the Alzheimer's Association. We have some family members in our company that have dealt with that. Personally, I'm a big supporter of anything with the American Cancer Society, having been through breast cancer recently. It's a big thing close to my heart. We're actually going to be doing a Relay for Life team in next year's Relay for Life that will be, I think, in April or May. So we're really excited about that, trying to get our team together. But just anything to give back to the community. And we're hoping with our partnership with the chamber and all the people we're meeting through the chamber to help us find more ways to give back to our community that's going to make a difference. So we're really excited about that. So any support you guys have or want to send our way of where we can look at that, please let me know.
We will share with you.
Sure.
You do your marketing with Mighty Eights, don't you?
That's correct. Yeah.
Okay, so does Colleen. There's another connection. You know Jonathan Holmes and
we all
team,
know
right?
Mighty Eighth well. Yeah. My wife is an attorney, and she has her own firm, and she's used Mighty Eighth for years. So,
nice.
So we all know Jonathan really well.
Yep.
He's a great creative, definitely
He is.
highly respected, and always so well dressed.
Oh yeah.
Absolutely.
Man alive.
Dapper.
I like it. Shout out Jonathan if you're listening. Colleen, I didn't share with our listeners on this channel. We have in the past with Celebrating Powerhouse Women. Colleen has actually been with NEMA for 15 years.
16 next month.
Wow. Tell us a little bit about the progression of your career throughout the years.
Sure. Yeah. So I started back in 2006, and I was hired to be the administrative assistant to the owner and then executive vice president. And just over the years, I'm pretty tenacious, and I'm willing to get in and learn whatever I need to do a better job and to make the company better as a whole. So I did that for several years, became the executive assistant. That wasn't enough. I was bored. So I decided I wanted to learn HR. So I took on some HR stuff and really got good into that. Well, then we were having a project that we needed a new transportation management system. And I said, well, I'm pretty good with computers and the internet. Took that on, became the project manager for that, elevated up to VP of operations, did that for several years. And then back in 2018, when the then president was looking to retire, and she was trying to figure out, gosh, who's going to take this on? I'm like, hey, sure. I like challenge, so let's see what happens. And so we spent the next year working on my transition, and I was named president in 2019 in June.
That's fantastic.
That's awesome.
Thank you.
What a great story. And I'm sure people appreciate the perspective you have on the organization.
Yeah.
There
Definitely.
isn't a hat that she hasn't worn in that building.
Yeah.
I haven't driven a truck, and I have not driven a forklift. They will not let me do it.
Yeah.
They had really cool Honda forklifts, didn't you?
Toyota, actually.
Toyota, see, I knew it. They
Okay.
were, super. And actually, they have like a service that comes and takes care of them for you, right? Because I asked who was the mechanic on deck who services, these tugs and the forklifts, but they actually have somebody that comes in and does all that for them.
Sure.
Super cool.
There's all, we talk to our business owner clients about transition and so but you guys are both like on the early stage of being in the role that you're in right now. So I mean you've kind of been through it from the perspective of being the transition and I think that's I'm curious about how you're going to be in the role for quite some time. I mean, are there certain priorities that you've got maybe for being in the role and kind of putting your mark on the organization, for the years to come?
Well, for me, it's just we want to, like I mentioned before, the principles of it. We want to make sure that we create a culture that is desired by the employees and also by our partners. So like we want everyone to be proud that they partner with us and not just they save us money, but gosh, don't associate with them. We want to be everything forthcoming and out in the open so that everyone's proud to do business with us. But I think also we want to grow. So we don't want to settle for where we are. We've been kind of flat for some years before COVID, and so I'm really proud of the growth. We've almost doubled in revenue since 2018, so I'm proud of that. But we've got a long way to go, and we're capable of a lot. And there's some really good opportunities in the marketplace. So I would like to take us there and be able to just kind of look back at the end of it and say, like, look what we did together as a team. And I think creating that culture of people knowing that they are contributing and that they are a valuable piece of the puzzle, that it's not a one-man show. It's not just a few people that are doing everything. It really is a group of people that are contributing their expertise, and I think that's really valuable.
I've heard you say a couple times now you want to build the partnership relationships and not the vendor relationships, and that's a mindset, and not everybody has that. And coming into relationships from the perspective of being a banker, I appreciate the fact that you're looking for partners, and then you have the expectation that people around you can step up and fill the role of being a partner, and not just deliver as a vendor.
And I think too, like if you go into the relationship with the attitude of like, hey, it's okay. It's not if we're not good partners for each other, that's not necessarily bad. Like it's not like you're bad or I'm bad, but it means our values are somehow misaligned, and that's okay. But we just need to recognize that and move on, rather than trying to make something work that wasn't meant to work. Right.
Yep.
So.
How about for you, Colleen? When do you think? I mean, in the future, when you look back, what sort of mark do you want to make on the organization?
Well, I don't know how I say it any better than what Cole said. I think that was fantastic. A lot of what he said, I mean, very similar. I want to be able to show that we've made a difference, that people can get their toilet paper and their paper towels, but also that we've done more than that, in people's lives. One of the things that Neil really would get excited about, and now I share that excitement, is when we'd have an employee come in and it's their first job. NEMA is the first place they've ever worked, and they're like, I just bought a house. I just bought my first real new car. And the excitement of being able to know you helped do that, to me, that is such a huge thing. And I want to be able to continue that mark. I want everybody in our company to say they either got their first car, their first house, because of working at NEMA.
Sure.
So to me, that's a big thing. And really just trying to find more ways to give back to the community, because the community, I think, has been just such an integral part of our growth over the years, especially this last year as we've gotten more involved with the chamber and making, again, like you say, a lot of partnerships and relationships with other people. How do we give back to them? How do we give back to this community that I've been a part of? I've been living here since 2002. So, this is the place I've lived the longest in my entire life, and it's home. And how do I make this an even better place to live? I don't know how you do, because Gwinnett County is fantastic, but how do we make it even better?
Right.
Sounds like you guys have also legacy in common. And I'm curious, although you're kind of carrying the torch for Neil and Marcia, was it?
Yep.
Cole, specifically, do you have any brothers or sisters?
Yeah, I have two younger brothers.
Two younger brothers. Do you imagine Porter Steel staying in the family? Is the ultimate goal maybe one day to sell it? And then I guess where I was going that really before I found out you had two brothers was, do you foresee bringing your children into the fold when they are of age?
Yeah, I think I'm glad you started that with legacy, because that really is a huge thing for me as far as why I'm interested in the business and why I really wanted to be involved. Just because I think it's so cool to see that, my dad started the business from really nothing, and grew it to where he grew it, and then I'm able to take that torch and continue with a new vision and a new energy. So I think it's really awesome, and I'm really into, I think the decisions we make today are going to affect my grandkids, so that I don't have yet, but they're going to be affected by the things I do today. And so I just think it's a really cool thing that God's given us, just the ability to affect future generations. And so that's important to me, and I certainly am. I don't know what the future of Porter Steel will be. I don't know the future of our economy or any of those things, but I certainly want to be a good steward of those things forever, and until God decides that I don't need to be a steward of it anymore. But I think that if my kids want to be involved, that'd be cool, to see that desire. But it needs to be a passion. It's got to be something that they really want, and not something that it's like they feel obligated to do. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
That'd be cool. The generations,
Right.
like you're talking about, you started out and do you guys forge steel?
No, so we take raw material, like the beam, the wide flange, the tube, the angle shapes in stock lengths, and then we cut them, torch them, drill them, fabricate them into usable columns, beams, rails, stairs, things like that.
Interesting. I had to Google that before we got on the air. I was like, I wonder if they forge steel.
There's lots of steps in the steel process, from they have to mine it, they mill it. There's just all these different spots. So common misconception. So.
Yeah. Colleen, did you have anything to add to the legacy piece?
No, I mean, I'm not part of the family per
But you're
se.
carrying
but
on the
I
legacy.
am, and I do it as much for Neil, because every day that I sat with him, his biggest thing was always talking about, I want this business to outlive me. I want it to take care of whoever, not just his family, but all the families that worked there. And so every day when I do it, I'm always thinking about what would Neil want? How would he want this to continue? And unfortunately, my daughter is a STEM girl, and she wants to do something, not anything to do with business. She tells me all the time, she says, Mom, what you do just doesn't look like a lot of fun. So I don't think we'll have that legacy, but I'm happy to let anybody else's children in our business that want to continue that legacy. I hope we can do that for a long time.
Support, yes, absolutely. Well, we've learned so much about Cole and Colleen today, but I realize they don't know much about you, Brad. Now, just give the abbreviated version. Brad too has been with First Citizens for quite a while, and the culture of First Citizens is very unique. So share with Colleen and Cole just a little bit about that.
I noticed the preface of abbreviated, Brad, right?
Only because we're at 40 minutes.
Yeah. She knows I could go on and on and on. I think something that our organization shares with our clients is the size of our organization and how we relate to our competitive peers. We'd like to think we're big enough to have the horsepower and products and services and all the things you need to do to be able to deliver on a relationship, but we're small enough to be responsive and have decision makers in the market and be flexible and be thoughtful about who we're going to bank and how we're going to bank and how we're going to manage those relationships as a true partner would. So the one thing I think about I think that applies to both of you too. I mean, sure, you've got much larger peers than you, and you leverage your size, I'm guessing, to your advantage. And we try and do that as well, and not apologize for being not as big or not have as many office locations, and leverage the fact that we're nimble and quick and can make decisions and can be responsive. So I think we've got that in common. The other thing I think we've got in common is that our organization is still controlled by the family that founded it. That's so cool. Way back in the late 1800s, that this family got the bank going, and somebody was involved with it. And generationally speaking, the grandson and granddaughter of the founder are our chair and vice chair of the organization, our CEO and president. So that's pretty cool. I'm one step removed from our vice chair. So we're a relatively flat organization. And so Hope, we'll call every once in a while. I've got her name programmed in my phone, so I know when Hope, our vice chair, is calling to say, "Hey, Brad, how's it going in Atlanta today?" She's over in Raleigh, and so we're still southeast headquartered, but she's interesting and she's fun to work with. So it's kind of cool to have that flat of an organization, to have decision making power pushed down into the market, so that we can serve our clients as a true partner and not as a vendor.
Awesome. I love it. 3 great, rich stories. But I do want to thank you guys for joining us. I told you that the time would fly by so quickly. But one thing that I like to do before we say adios is I'd love for you to leave our listeners with just a word of wisdom or a thought or something positive. And I will lead. This comes from our good friend, Randy Brunson, who encourages you to be generous with not only your time, your treasures, and your talents. And Randy is a great mentor to both Cole and I, and I love sharing that piece so that others can learn. And we will lead with Brad.
Wow.
Give us some
putting
daddy
somebody
wisdom.
on the spot.
Know,
Holy
right?
cow.
Give us your wisdom.
Yeah, right. I would say just grab a pen and a piece of paper and write down something you're grateful for. And I think that's something you can do on a daily basis. And sometimes I forget to do that. And then I remember, oh, yeah, there are a few things that, there's a real reason to have a smile on your face right now.
That's called a gratitude journal.
Indeed.
I love it.
Yep.
Yes.
Cole?
Oh, gosh. If I had to just fall back on one, it'd probably be anytime I give my opinion or try to defend something or put myself out there, I need to just know the principle behind where I'm at and not just really ask myself, why do I believe this? And is it right? Is it right based on my principles? And I think if we do that, we eliminate a lot of just fluff in the world.
Well said. Yeah.
My turn, huh? I would say the one word, because I've had to come across this a lot lately, is being humble. Because you can be humble in so many ways and so many different facets of your life. And I think, even with the success that I've been blessed with and worked hard for, I sometimes have to remember I didn't get there by myself, and to be humble too. There's a lot bigger powers out there than me, and just remember that.
Well said.
Absolutely. Yeah. Well, thank you guys for joining us today. We have to say thanks to our producer, Mike, behind you. Our guests today were Colleen and Cole, and my co-host in the catbird seat is Mr. Brad. This episode was brought to you by First Citizens Bank today. And for those of you out there listening, you can always catch these archived episodes on businessradiox.com. Select the Forsyth Studio. And of course, they are available on your favorite podcasting app. I listen on Apple iTunes. Where do you listen, Brad?
I do as well.
Okay.
Spotify.
I've got to get Spotify, I guess.
Got to get the Spotify. Thank you guys for joining us, and we will see you again. I am your host, Amanda Pearch, and for Brad, this has been Forsyth Business Radio on Business Radio X.